guys, it's Jessii Vee, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about a very strange crime that occurred in the 1800s that has to do with a married couple and fairies, which I never thought I would say anything like that before, especially because this is a real case that happened many years ago. Fairies and a murderer? Unheard of. Before I get started though, in case you have not seen my last video, I have such an exciting announcement for you guys. I have created a virtual world. It's called Jessii Vee World, and it's basically a home for all of my Vee team members. I wanted you guys to have a sense of community, a place where you don't feel alone. It's a place where we could talk about all of the strange and unusual things happening in the world. There's gonna be events there. I'm gonna be making appearances there. We're all gonna hang out, and it's so cool because everyone gets an avatar, and there's gonna be early access to this world on February 12th at 5 p.m. EST. So the waiting list is open right now. I'm gonna put a link down below in the description along with a pinned comment. But the first 500 people to enter that world on that date will get an exclusive wearable for their avatar. And you guys, the wearable is button eyes. So all of you guys that got into the world on time are gonna be walking around with button eyes on. I am so excited. But like I said, the most important thing is that this is a home, a community for my Vee team. We're gonna be having so many awesome chats on there. I just cannot wait. So don't forget to join the waiting list if you want to have access on the 12th. So it's down below in the description and also as a pinned comment. Cannot wait to see you there. Alright guys, so let's talk about this very strange case. This is what happened to Bridget Cleary. Bridget Cleary was born in 1869 and was said to be very intelligent, beautiful, and independent. She was a dressmaker, a hat maker, and she sold eggs. And she stood out among others because she was literate, which many women weren't back then, and she was relatively well off. She was 18 years old when she met her husband Michael. He was 27 at the time, and he worked as a craftsman constructing barrels and other goods. They got married, they moved in together, and while many people in the town were living in windowless, mud-walled houses with thatched roofs, they had a beautiful stone cottage with a slate roof and glass windows. So yeah, they definitely stood out. Many of their neighbors said that it looked as though Michael and Bridget had a very happy marriage. The only issue that ever arose was the fact that Bridget wanted to start making home deliveries for the things that she made, like her dresses, her hats, the eggs that she was selling. Usually people would come and pick them up, but she wanted to start offering a service where she would go directly to their house to drop it off. Now, her husband did not like this idea at all. He did not like the independence, but that didn't stop her. Good for her. So on Monday, March 4th of 1895, she left the house to go deliver some eggs to her father's cousin. It was a 3-mile walk, and to get there, she had to walk through this medieval earthen ring fort. It was on Kyle-na-Grenna Hill, and many people called it the Fairy Fort. And back in the 19th century, superstition about fairies was still very prominent. According to Irish folklore, they were known as fair folk, which were basically human-sized mythical beings that lived hidden in the world. And like humans, they can be generous, bestowing good favor on those who treat them well, or they can be evil and vindictive, spoiling milk, damaging crops. Often, if something went wrong in 19th century Ireland, people said it was the fairies' doing, so fairies were always blamed. And fairy forts, like the one Bridget passed that Monday morning, were said to be where they lived. Locals believe that if you walk too close to a fairy circle, you might get snatched by a fairy, and they would often take young children or pretty women. It was believed that fairies had trouble producing babies of their own, so they would steal pretty mortals to embolden their line. And when fairies stole someone, they would leave a changeling behind, which was basically a fairy made to resemble the person stolen. So it was like a fairy in disguise, if that makes sense. And often a changeling would be identified or found out because of their strange actions, like falling sick or looking slightly different from the original person. So when Bridget returned from her trip of delivering eggs, she got home and she just could not get warm. The next day she was shivering in her bed and she was complaining about this raging headache that she had. And over the next few days, her condition got worse and worse. Finally, a doctor came to see her and he diagnosed her with nervous excitement and bronchitis. nervous excitement? Does he mean like anxiety? Like, oh, you're fine, you just have anxiety. So he gave her some medicine, and they also had a priest come in to read her last rites just in case she died. Michael became super concerned for his wife's welfare and began to look for supernatural causes for her illness. He said that his wife looked different. He claimed that she was 2 inches taller and looked too fine to be his wife. What does that even mean? So he met with this local storyteller who was very versed in fairy lore, and he told Michael, that is not your wife in there. And he gave him this herbal cure to give to his wife to turn her back into her original form. So that night, Michael invited over a bunch of men to hold her down onto the bed to force her to take this very strange fairy medicine. He apparently even yelled out,
"Take it, you witch, or I'll kill you."
And to try to drive the fairy out of her, they threw urine all over her. They threatened her with a hot poker. They eventually even burned her forehead with it. So she did end up drinking this fairy medicine because she was literally being tortured. And by the end of the night, she seemed to be back to her normal self. And Michael felt very satisfied with this fairy exorcism. In the morning, Bridget got dressed and invited several relatives over for tea. And they were all sitting around the table, and she asked if someone could pass her the milk. In that moment, Michael's paranoia reignited because he knew that fairies were said to crave fresh milk. But dude, you're at a tea party. So in front of the entire family, he grabbed her and tried doing another fairy exorcism. He was burning her skin once again with the hot poker, eventually catching her whole dress on fire. She went up in flames. One of the relatives in the room yelled out, "Michael, don't do this. Don't burn your wife." And he apparently responded with,
"She's not my wife. She's an old deceiver sent in place of my wife."
So she died from what was happening to her. And later that night, he buried her in a shallow grave about a quarter-mile from their cottage. He spent the next 3 nights waiting at the fairy fort for the fairies to return the true Bridget. He believed that at any moment, she would come galloping through the ring fort on this white horse, and they would be able to be reunited and they would walk back to their house. But the police arrived to him first, obviously, and he was put on trial and found guilty of her death, thank goodness. What's unfortunate about this time in history is that a lot of the women being accused of being changelings were educated women. They were successful women. They were empowered women, literate women. It was women who didn't necessarily fall in line with their husband. There's actually a lot of similarities between women being accused of changelings and witches. Both were a means of punishment for women who stepped outside of society's norms. Women like Bridget Cleary. And so that is the case, and obviously it wasn't fairies who did this to her. She was just becoming more independent and made her husband worried, and yes, maybe he really did believe in changelings and that she was stolen. Still doesn't make what he did right. And it just goes to show you that instead of thinking, oh, my wife's being amazing, her work is going well, she's delivering products by herself, he thought, no, that can't be her because she can't do that. She must be a fairy. And that's just so messed up to me. So let me know what you guys think of this case down below in the comments, and if you want me to do more videos of strange crimes that occurred in the 1800s, give this video a thumbs up and let me know. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Hey guys, I am so excited to announce that I have been working on a virtual home for all of you guys watching right now, all of my amazing Vee team. It's a place that we can talk about all of the strange and unusual things that are happening in the world, and I'm giving early access to the first 500 people that join on February 12th at 5 p.m. EST. So sign up at jessiivee.world.co to join the waiting list, and the first 500 people get an exclusive wearable. Are you ready to find out what it is? Button eyes! So check out the link down below to join the waiting list.